Good evening. This is Sandy Gabe, and this evening's presentation is about finding new members from Gen Z to Boomers. And we are going to have two speakers this evening, myself and Peg Carlson Bowen, who is the VP of Membership in the San Jose branch. And she'll be joining at the end of the session to give you some very useful information about how the San Jose branch was able to increase their membership by double digits this last year. Even though most of us were losing members, they were able to gain new members into their branch. So you'll want to stick around for that piece because Peg's got some really interesting information for you. All right, so let's get going here. So as I mentioned, over the past few years, and this is from the last 3 years, we've really seen a decrease in membership within AAUW and specifically within AAUW California. So over the past 3 years, we've lost about 17% of our members. And last year, we lost almost 11% of members. Now we have some new members, so you know that that's a net loss. So we gained more, a few more members, but overall we lost members in the past year and in the past 3 years. And we're seeing the same trends in the student population. So in terms of the numbers of student members we've had, that has also declined pretty dramatically over the last couple of years. And COVID is probably a very strong reason for some of this decline to happen, but we still have to address it, even though it may be COVID related and maybe everything's going to bounce back this coming year when COVID goes away, we hope. So one of the things that Diane Owens did, who is our president, is she put together an initiative to increase and raise the visibility of AAUW in California. So in the first year, we worked with a marketing organization and looked at some strategies for how to do that. And we have several different strategies. The one that we're going to talk about this evening is encouraging retirement age and working age people to join AAUW and support AAUW's mission. So that's what we're going to be speaking about this evening, and we're really looking at those two audiences. There are lots of areas that we can look to increasing membership, but these are the two areas that we have chosen to focus on this year and is the topic of our discussion tonight. So the first thing is start with a plan. For those of you who know me, you're probably not surprised that that's where we're going to start. So we want to start with a plan, and we want to start by setting goals for recruitment. So as you know, if you want to go someplace, it's always easier to know whether you've been successful and whether you've gotten there if you have a plan identifying where you're going. So your plan might include things like some goals around the metrics of your membership. So you might want to look at targeting a percentage of membership increase. So maybe you want to say, I want to have a 10% increase of membership next year. And maybe I want to retain some of my members. And you might recall that the 5-star program is looking for retention goals as well. It's always easier to keep members you have than to get new ones. So that's something that you should take some focus on. It's not going to be the discussion. We're not going to really talk about membership increase, but we are going to refer to some of the materials that we've presented over the last 18 months or so that relate to membership retention as well. The other thing to consider is looking at the foundation of your branch. So looking at things like, do you have activities that attract people? So if you were to encourage people to join your branch, is there a reason for them to stay? Is there a way for them to connect? Are you welcoming to those members? And do they know what activities are going on so that they can get connected with your branch? So that's a characteristic we're going to talk a little bit about, but is not really the focus of our evening tonight. We're really going to talk about identifying your target audiences, key messages, and market strategies. Those are the things that we're going to focus on this evening. So the first thing to think about is evaluating your branch foundation. So you may wonder what that is. So if you think about all the things that make a branch a really exciting place to be, what makes people want to join your branch? Do you have great programs? Do you inspire people to do great things? Do you develop your members so that they feel like they're learning something from you? Are you welcoming and inviting? If a new member wants to join, can they find where your programs are? Can they connect with your leadership? Can they participate? And so those are things that you might want to consider as you're looking at attracting new members. Because if you've got weaknesses in this area, you might want to shore them up as you put your marketing plan together. So the piece we're looking at tonight, it's on the right-hand side, that marketing plan, and how do you use that to create the membership growth that you see at the top of the screen. On the left-hand side, you can see several webinars that we've done in the past that you can check out to address some of those issues. So if you are looking at some of your foundational pieces, maybe you want to do a SWOT analysis. So there's a webinar that we did on charge. Care and feeding of volunteers is a great way to take a look at. You've got people in your branch. How do you keep them engaged? How do you keep them enjoying the experience? And so you see on the left-hand side some of those. And Gail's going to put where those are located in the chat for you. So you can find them easily on our website. They're up under webinars on the top menu item. So let's talk a little bit about audiences. I don't know if we've ever talked about audiences in quite this way. We're looking at two different audiences this evening. As I mentioned earlier, in the areas that we've decided to focus, one is on younger age recruitment, and the second is on retirement age recruitment. When we did our outreach and we did some surveying and we did some validation of that surveying, we found that younger people might be interested in our organization. They're looking for some very specific things. They're looking for career advancement. They want to be able to network. They want to advance their careers. They want to meet other people who are in similar circumstances who can help them advance their careers. And they want to develop their leadership skills. Those topics are a little bit different than most branches focus on today. So we recognize there's a little bit of a potential gap on that piece. The second part of it is, the second audience is the retirement age recruitment. And these are people who are very much like most of our branches today. They're looking at being interested in AAUW mission, our advocacy work, our interest groups, and they're looking for like-minded people. So this population is really not as much of a stretch for most branches as the younger age recruitment might be. So we did this exercise called personas, and we looked at brand personas and audience personas. And a brand persona is really who's AAUW. And we know that pretty well. We didn't spend a whole lot of time on that because it talks about who we are as a brand. And we're pretty clear on that. We're a mission-based organization. We focus on advocacy. And so that was less of a question for us than what our audience personas are. So the brand persona, who is AAUW, that's how that piece goes together. But what we spent a lot of time on is audience personas. So an audience persona answers the question is, who are they? Who are the people that we're trying to attract? Now, we could have chosen tall people, short people, green people, but we chose younger people and retirement age people. So what we did was we said, who are they? And we put together some characteristics about them. So it allows us, if we have a persona, it allows us to kind of put a picture and a face to that name. And so these are used to create targeted marketing messages. So in the past, what we've done, and we've done this a lot at AAUW California, is we've taken one message on our social media and we've blasted it out to everybody. So we put it on Facebook, we put it on Instagram, we put it on Twitter, we put it on LinkedIn, all the same as if everybody that we talk to is the same kind of person. So I'm going to introduce you to Jess and to Pat. So Jess is our younger age persona, and Pat is our retired age persona. And you might be able to tell that from their hairdos. That's one clue here. So as we get to talking about these two, Jess and Pat are quite different in their challenges to life, but they do share a value of social justice, and they can identify with the AAUW mission, but we use different channels to reach them. So you're going to find Jess on Instagram. She's younger. She's probably not using Facebook. And our retirement age persona might be using more traditional media, newspapers, internet searches, and Facebook. Although I think we will find in the next year, as more research comes out about this area, that the pandemic has actually caused a little bit of shift between these two, because I think that there's been a lot more integration of Instagram into the retirement age group, because we've had to connect with our families in a different way. And most of our younger kids and grandkids are not using Facebook, they're using Instagram. So we've had to move into that category. But traditionally, this is the difference between the two different personas. So let's talk about retirement age. So here's Pat. She's 50 plus. And you can see on the right-hand side, and you can download this for your own use after or before this, as we're doing this presentation. We talk a little bit about her activities, what she values, her voice, and this is how we want to talk to her. So we're going to use an informal but professional voice. So we're not going to say, hey, you. We're going to say hello, that sort of thing. And we're going to be matter of fact. And her goals might be to stay active after retirement, to still have an impact, and to meet friends with shared interests. And these are some of the media outlets that she might like. These are some of the challenges that she might be facing. And these are some of the marketing messages that we might use for her. So the first one is, just take an example. What are you planning to do after you retire? So if we were trying to reach Pat, we might use messages such as, have a little extra time after retirement, look for ways to get involved. So we're really targeting what she is focused on. We're acknowledging retirement. We're acknowledging that she has time to get involved. In this next one, meet like-minded women for social, educational, and advocacy opportunities through AAUW. So we're really picking in on the things that she has said that she's interested in. And then the final one, as an example, is, acknowledging retirement is amazing. And then this moment arrives where you wonder, what am I going to do? And that's our hook to try to get Pat to take the next click and find out what we have to offer. So that's Pat. Let's look a little bit at Jess. So Jess is younger. We think she's around 35, and she's really looking for professional development. As I said earlier, she's looking for leadership development. She wants to network with people, and she wants to hone those leadership skills so that she can advance her career. So our message is, rather than talking about retirement, we want to talk about things like advancing your career. How do you advance your leadership, enhance your leadership skills? How do you meet other women of influence who can help you with that? Or the last one, take a little time for yourself this month and develop your leadership skills. Networking with interesting, like-minded women at a time that works for your schedule. So one of the challenges that we have is that most of our branches probably are light on this type of activity. So we recognize that, and we're working to provide some opportunities to attract this audience, recognizing that there may not be as many opportunities at a branch level for this to occur. So you can download your working age persona document from our website, and you can take a look at it, and you can take a look at the things and this how we can help is useful. Work Smart and Start Smart are negotiation trainings that really call to this particular audience. So those are things to think about as you're trying to attract this audience. All right, so now that we know about Jess and Pat, and we're looking at our recruitment messages, how do we take those messages and how do we hook people to join AAUW? So let's talk a little bit more about that. So everybody's probably heard the term, what's in it for me? We tend to approach people with what's in it for me as AAUW, not what's in it for them. So we have a little bit of an unbalance sometimes when we approach. We really expect people to be grateful to participate with us, and we don't really push what's in it for them. So one of the things to consider as you're thinking about that message is what's in it for the person you are trying to engage. Why should they join you? What are they going to get out of this opportunity? And we have some great things to offer, and we can talk about those things. So some of the things about leveraging AAUW's uniqueness. We are one of a few organizations that have a national presence, a state presence, and local branches. So we've got some pretty deep breadth in terms of in depth of where you can get involved. We're nonpartisan, but political. We have a social justice focus. We do legal support, educational support. We provide the opportunity for friendship, and we provide the opportunity for common interest exploration. So there are a lot of things there that can be attractive to both Jess and Pat. But how are you going to hook them? So we have lots of opportunities, and I love this graphic that Carol Holtzgraf provided to us. This is a picture of interest groups in a branch and just the variety of interest groups that are available. So your interest groups can be varied and educational. They can be fun, they can be educational, and you can use them. So if you go to Beyond the Newsletter webinar, you'll be reminded of some of the ways that you can use your interest groups to connect with your members. So once you have connected them, you can get them engaged in other things. So let's say that somebody is part of an interest group. It's a small setting. You have the opportunity to have more one-on-one conversation. And you can approach people about participating in other parts of the organization. You could use your interest groups to support some of your fundraising or other activities that you have by having your interest group be responsible for some of those activities. Other networking opportunities that we have is collaboration with other community organizations. So many of us are part of multiple organizations. I think that's one of the characteristics of an AAUW member is AAUW is usually not our only organization we volunteer for. We frequently volunteer for other organizations. And so we have that crossover opportunity. And we can expose the community to AAUW through our hosted events. And then we have online, we have a lot of online activities this year, in particular, given COVID. Some other things to think about when we think about some of these are related to PAT, is mentorship opportunities and leadership training. And you may not think that you have very many of those opportunities at your branch for somebody like Jess, but we have Tech Trek alumni groups, and the Tech Trek committee is working on putting together a toolkit for how to create Tech Trek alumni groups across the branches. So you'll hear more about that. I think there is an AAUW land session at our annual meeting on April 30th, where you can hear more about that. Our committees and task forces provide opportunities for leadership. So you can help people learn leadership skills by coaching and mentoring there. We also do student-run organizations on college campuses. And we have lots of training opportunities in terms of webinars that we have on the state site, and many branches have those opportunities as well. And just to mention, you'll notice on the left-hand side, we have our webinars that relate to the topic that's on the screen listed on the left-hand side, so you can find them. So maybe AAUW membership answers the question, what's in it for me? We've got lots of opportunities here to share things that our new members can gain from participating with AAUW. One of the questions that is frequently asked is, where do you find these members? Where can we find potential members? You know, is there a special store for them? And oh, look, there's a store there. I forgot there was a picture of a store. So there are lots of places for you to consider where to get new members. One of the things to think about is to mine your own program participants. So you have Tech Trek and Speech Trek parents. You've got teachers who've recommended those participants to the programs. You have past scholarship winners. Those are all places to try to encourage people to join the organization. In terms of CU partnership, we frequently have focused on the student aspect of CUs. Let's get student members to join. But there are faculty and staff at our local colleges and schools that are ripe for joining AAUW. And some of our branches have not only encouraged them to join AAUW, but have encouraged them to help with their social media campaigns. So that's something to think about. As I mentioned earlier, lots of us are parts of other organizations, League of Women Voters, Rotary. So it's okay to share AAUW with those organizations and try to recruit from those organizations. And then here's some new ideas that you may or may not have thought of. We have acknowledged sometimes that people join AAUW when they move into a community. It's a great way to meet new people. That's how I got into AAUW. I was at a local event and somebody said, you need to do two things, join AAUW and join Jazzercise. And I did both of them. And it was a wonderful way to get to know the organization and to get to know my community. So think about how you could meet new homeowners, work with your realty organizations, title companies to try to extend AAUW to those new people in town. Our senior centers are a perfect opportunity. You're looking at every age group in that area. And if you're part of things like the Chamber of Commerce or Downtown Business Association, those are fantastic ways to understand what's going on in the community, figure out places to connect with activities that are already going on. And those tend to be, in many cases, the younger population that we're trying to attract. And then there are also industry organizations. You know, we talked about teachers already, but teachers unions, women in engineering, those kinds of professional organizations. If you're a member of those, or if you know somebody who is, those are great organizations to try to connect with and, you know, invite them to your meetings, Ask them to do a presentation for you. Use their expertise, and that'll be a way that you can cement some connection with them. All right, so we have some ideas about where we might find them. Now, how are we going to get the message out to them? And some of this is going to be repetitive from some of the other webinars that we've done, and some of it is new. But you need to have a strategy to promote your branch. And one great way to get started is to identify somebody in your branch to be your publicity coordinator. So it is helpful to have somebody whose job it is to understand your community, understand how things get publicized within your community, and to corral your branch members and your program leads to feed information so that it gets out to the community. So maybe that includes developing a publicity calendar. So if you know that you're going to have 3 events this year, work back from those events to say, when should we publicize? What goes on Facebook? What goes on Instagram? What goes in the paper? What goes on flyers around town? And put together a calendar for those things so that you don't miss those opportunities. And maintain a list of media outlets with contacts and deadlines. So if your local paper has printed once a week and you know the deadline is a week ahead, you can plug that into your publicity calendar so you don't miss those opportunities. You could also create some press kits or publicity kits that have maybe a brochure or a flyer about your branch, about the great things that you do, and have them as leave behind so that you can use those in your meetings, or you can use them when you're trying to do some press. You could take a big plunge and try to do a marketing video. It's not as scary as you think. We all actually have, I don't know if you can see this, we all have our own video creation tool right on our desktop. Your phone can do it. All you have to do is do a selfie or put it on a monitor and copy, have somebody film you. It doesn't have to be long. It can be short and sweet, and put it on Facebook, put it on your website, and get that word out. Remember to promote membership on all of your communications. So people need to be asked to join. So remember that. Remember to ask them, to tell them how they can join, where they can find information about joining, where they can find information on your meetings, how they can donate to your organization. And then use social media and your website presence. We're going to talk a little bit more about that in a minute. And don't forget to leverage your community connections. So this is where I think of stealing from other organizations. So find out what the connections are that your members have with other organizations. You could do this as part of your membership sign-up form. You could do a survey at the beginning of the year, just saying we want to know who's connected with XYZ organizations, or tell us who, and then use those people to make the connection with those organizations. You could make it formal and say, Patty is going to be the person who is always going to contact Rotary, for instance, and get our publicity out with them. You could do it like that, or it could be much more informal. And then once you know those organizations, you can hold joint meetings or ask them to participate or volunteer to do presentations for them as well, so that you get some crossover, because when both organizations are working together, it strengthens both organizations and you get the benefit of appealing to both of the memberships there. You can also try new ideas. I know it depends on the the community that you're in. Some communities it's easier to do this than others. So you might have a public service announcement to a local radio or a cable TV, joining, as I mentioned earlier, the Chamber of Commerce or the Downtown Business Association. But you have to also attend the events. So sometimes we join these organizations, but we don't actually follow through and go. So go to the monthly meetings and say hi. You don't have to get to know everybody. My rule of thumb, even though I talk a lot, I really dislike going into a new meeting where I don't know anybody. It's one of the things that is most uncomfortable for me. And so what I do is I say, I just have to talk to one person today or two people today. That's all I have to do. You don't have to get to know everybody. So eke into it slowly. And then the next time you'll go, you'll already know one person, and then you can pick somebody else out to be your buddy for the meeting. Explore some of the online groups. Nextdoor and Meetup are great ways to create a community for AAUW in your community. So those are tools. Some of them have a little bit of a cost, but they give you the opportunity to connect and use some viral outreach to get to other people. If you have community events coming up, and maybe they're not AAUW, but there's no reason that you can't have an AAUW pre-party. So let's say that there is, we have our Rotary Art and Wine Festival that happens every Memorial Day weekend. Why not get all the AAUW members together before that and walk around the organization, walk around the event together, and use it as an opportunity to kind of solidify your relationships. Again, offer to speak at other service clubs. Everybody's always looking for speakers. We have great things to say. Use them, promote them across multiple organizations. And then sometimes you just need to maybe spend a little money. Purchase ads in either local print, put an ad in the paper, put it in the classifieds, or spend some money on your social media, Facebook, Instagram, and try that as a way to get the word out. And then I skipped the second to last bullet, which is to think of your members as ambassadors and help them be able to talk to new people. So have some ambassador training or new member training. Give them a packet of business cards and brochures, and talk about an elevator speech and practice it so that they can be ambassadors as they go out and meet with other organizations and other individuals. You can also do fun things like, make stuff. This is one of my favorite things, business cards, brochures, buttons that you can wear around. The Wildflower Run has a great t-shirt that has this, this was their last one. And yard signs. For instance, we had a home tour, and so we had a yard sign, and it, promotes AAUW. So it's not just the home tour, but it promotes our organization. I love this little bag. Maybe you give your new members a bag, or maybe that's an event item that people can purchase. One thing to think about is using QR codes. So they're really, really, really easy now. Most phones, you don't need to have a QR code reader. You just take a picture of it with your cell phone. And if you just Google create QR code, you'll get a whole list of websites that allow you to create a QR code. And it's as easy as putting the URL from the place you want people to go in this little form, and it will pop out a URL for you. This is a pretty easy one, but you can do fancy ones with your logo in them and different shapes and stuff. But just start out easy and use a basic QR code and put those on your different items so that you don't have to say, look at this website. They can launch it and go directly where you'd like them to go. You might also consider that your website and social media can do some of the work for you. And I've done quite a few sessions on keeping your website current and how to set up Facebook accounts and those sorts of things. So I'm just going to reiterate a couple of key points for you to consider. The social media team went and did an investigation, and we looked at every single branch website, and we looked for a few things. We looked to see, is it current? Is your website current? And we were pretty generous in what we considered current. Excuse me, I'm going to cough for a moment. I was hoping I could get through without popping a cough drop, but I guess I'm not going to be able to. So I apologize that I have a cough drop in my mouth. So when we looked at our websites, we said, if there is content there that is, excuse me, oh, this is going to be bad. I waited too long to pop the cough drop. My apologies. So what we found is about 75% of our websites are evergreen or current. Meaning if you looked at them, you wouldn't think they're out of date by at least 6 months. That's a very, very generous description. But about 20% of them are significantly out of date. So I encourage you to take a look at your website and make sure it's evergreen. So that means that it doesn't have a date on something that's already passed. So just talk about your branch and how important your branch is and the important work it does without putting any dates in the middle. Use a calendar on the right side to put your Google Calendar in, so that looks current because it'll show your upcoming events. Remember to provide a way for them to join. Post your newsletter so they know what you're doing. Give them links to your social media. And this is another area that we looked at, and it was kind of surprising to find that only 30% of our branches have a Facebook page. So you're missing lots of opportunity to connect with people. And we couldn't find anybody who had a LinkedIn page, and very few people have Twitter or Instagram. So that's something that we're going to focus on in the future. I'm going to talk about that at the end, and I'm very happy at this point to be able to turn this over to Peg. She's going to turn her video on, and she's going to get me out of the hot seat here, and I'm going to go suck on a cough drop intensely while you take this next section. Just tell me to advance the slide when you're ready, Peg. You have to unmute first. We can't hear you.
Okay.
Okay, there you go.
Okay.
Yep.
Great. Okay, go ahead. Okay, well, during the last year, actually the last couple of years, during COVID, when all of us were sort of expecting the worst, we actually ended up having a double-digit increase. And the way that we did that is we quickly pivoted to Zoom. There were a lot of people who thought that they couldn't handle that level of technology, but all of us have realized we're pretty good at it. Another thing that we have done for years that carried us through the last couple of years is we have built bridges with other like-minded civic groups. In fact, during the 2020 anniversary of the 19th Amendment, we helped establish a whole commission of 35 different interest groups in the area. And we met a lot of people that connected up with us and were like-minded, and some joined. We used college students in a marketing and graphic design public relations program at San Jose State University. And they did a project where they created marketing materials for us, some marketing ideas and so forth. They gained some experience, and we gained collateral, fresh ideas, and good information from them. We do have a Facebook page, and we have a website. The Facebook page has been very popular. We have more people who follow our Facebook page and like our Facebook page every week than we have members because of the connections we have with other groups in our area. And we did ask all the members to be recruitment ambassadors for AAUW and gave them specific things to do. Like maybe you can't give an elevator speech, but if a prospective member comes to a coffee, make sure that you sit with them and talk to them. So you can be an ambassador on a very small scale or on a much bigger scale. We have one member who writes for the local papers, and she is always on the hunt for AAUW topics and has been very, very good at generating interest there. You want to go to the next slide? So we actually went, by the way, that button down in the right-hand corner is one of the things that the students designed for us during some of our sessions. We have found that we're not only having a few younger members join us, but we're not thinking necessarily of retirement age as much as retirement age adjacent. So we found that we had retired members, retired new members, but we also found that women whose kids were in junior and senior year of high school were looking ahead to what was going to happen in their lives when they were empty nesters. So we've had quite a few people in that situation join. And of course, we're very cognizant of the need for those working women to have events in the evening. So that has been very important to us, that we keep a balanced set of events. We have a public policy, or we have a great decisions group that meets in the morning and the evening, a book club that meets in the morning and the evening. So that was something that we did consciously. We have quite a few people who are looking for nonpartisan advocacy efforts. They're tired of divisiveness, but they really believe in our mission. And so that was a big draw for new members. We do have a few members who are recent graduates. They may have degrees. One has a degree in public policy, and she is seeking experience on how to advocate and how to interact with legislators, how to deal with the county government, et cetera. So we took her to her first Women's March, and that was a big thing for her. She was afraid to go on her own. A lot of people learned about AAUW, as Sandy mentioned, through other groups. Friends of Friends is a perennial favorite. And also people saw a benefit. They're looking for a way to make a difference. Well, if you see and meet local scholarship recipients who are amazing and who are going to change the future, you feel like you really are contributing to a different future. Same thing with Tech Trek kids. I'm wearing my Tech Trek coach t-shirt tonight, and that was an amazing opportunity for me to see what the future is like. We also started what we're calling coffee and conversation meetings. They're outdoors, spread out, but we have a monthly meeting where we get together with no particular agenda. And people were looking for a lot of social interaction over the last couple of years. We've been so isolated. We also make sure that there is on our website a application form, and also just something to express interest. So there are a couple of different ways that you can get to our membership group. And by the way, I'm not the only VP of membership in San Jose. We have 4 VPs of membership and quite an active membership treasurer, and they're all a great group that help us come up with all these ideas and follow up and carry the load of bringing new members in. So that's what we found when we talked to new members. Sandy? Oh yeah, this is one of the pieces of collateral that our students put together for us a couple of years ago. It was I think a 5x7 card that we handed out at events, and we leave on the table whenever we're going somewhere at the library or whatever. Very easy to absorb, not too much information. I think sometimes we kind of fire hose people, and this is on the back side of that flyer.
All right, thank you, Peg. There was a question in the Q&A about how many members do you have? Maybe you could answer that for San Jose.
Right now we have 230 some members. We have lost some members just due to aging, but we have added members every single month for the last 2 years.
That's fantastic. Great. Thank you for sharing that. And thank you for giving me a chance to suck on a cough drop. So what's next? We have a couple of things. We'll do some Q&A in a minute, but I just wanted to share with you the upcoming webinars. We recognize that since we have very few branches that have Instagram and LinkedIn, we need to perhaps do a little bit of education around how to set up accounts. I hadn't originally intended to do one on Facebook because I did one last year, but considering we only have 30% of branches, I rethought that. So we'll do Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And that'll be part one on January 19th. On January 21st, we have our first Lunch and Learn series. And this series is specifically targeted at the younger population. And it is a woman, we're going to have an interview style event. And the topic is entrepreneurship, is it for me? It's an opportunity to hear from somebody who's been in the trenches, who's done this, how they created their organizations and what they would do different today, and an opportunity for Q&A. And so it's a short 45-minute session. We're hoping that we can attract some non-AAUW members. And our goal at this point is not necessarily to turn them into AAUW members, but is to evaluate whether we were able to connect with them and whether they found the session valuable. And we're planning another one in February as well, although we don't have a specific date yet. But we're kind of trying it out to see how it works. And then on February 22nd, we'll have a second part of the social media blitz, because one of the things that I realized as we were working through our own marketing teams is it's really nice to talk about Pat and Jess and the messages they need. But the way that you can successfully post on Facebook is very different than on Instagram and on LinkedIn. So for instance, Instagram is mostly pictures, and that seems obvious. Everybody knows that, but you can't put a link in Instagram. So how do you get people to your event? Is that the best way? LinkedIn, people write books, very long articles in LinkedIn, and that's what's most successful. And there are some tips that we'll share so that we can move on to creating the ideal post for each account, and so you can be more successful in your advertising. So that is the end of the prepared stuff. And Dawn, I don't know if there are any.
Yes, we do have a few things we might want to talk about. We had a couple of earlier comments. They're not in the open category right now, but they're comments I wanted to openly share with the group. A couple of people commented that they think it would be very effective if AAUW started looking more at offering activities that were appropriate for families, women with children, because that's what they're looking for. And it might open us up to a different way to attract the working age mother, the working age woman, a working age member, I should say. If that person, boy, there's just, I don't even know which pronouns to pick anymore. But if that person had an opportunity to do something that they could bring their children to, or that could be a family event. So it might be something to tuck away in branch planning to come up with ideas that would in fact also engage the families. So I thought that was good commentary that came from a couple of people. Another person asked early on, and I just want to make sure that you agree with the answer. They asked, why is it that the younger women do not appear to be, or younger people do not appear to be as interested in advocacy and mission-based work? And what I responded, and you can chime in, is that it wasn't that they, in our focus group with our marketing project, it wasn't as much that they weren't interested in advocacy and mission-based work. It was just that it wasn't a high priority for them. It would not have been a driver for them to join. Do you have anything to add to that?
That's true. And I think the term that resonated more with that group was social justice instead of advocacy. But when we asked them to rank what would entice them. And well, it's kind of at the bottom of the list. It doesn't mean it's unimportant, but the top 3 things were all related to career advancement. And so that's why we focused on that area.
You kind of cut out when you said it, but you were saying that the term that they responded to more was social activism.
Social justice.
Social justice.
Social justice.
Instead of our term that we are used commonly of advocacy, social
or public policy.
So that's something to think about in your materials and your marketing materials. Then we have a few open questions here that I'll just bring up. We were asked if there's a PowerPoint starter deck for member presentations on AAUW. I think you just listened to one. I'm not sure if I would suggest that there is a rich number of resources on the national website under membership, and you may find some PowerPoint presentations that you can in fact use.
I took this one to be, is there like a template so that you can use it? I don't know, Christine is the person who submitted that. I don't know, Christine, if you can embellish that or not. AAUW National does have a template for a PowerPoint or a presentation, and it just has an AAUW logo on it, if that's what you're looking for. I don't know if that answers her question or not.
Okay. And just another comment, and you can see this as well, but when you were talking about the QR code, someone mentioned to be a little careful because some of them only last for 6 months. So just something to think about. This is a very specific question about Facebook, a technical question about Facebook. So you can see that question, but I'll share it for others. How do you delete and start a new Facebook page when you have a branch Facebook page that no one's administering? How do you start a new one if you're not the administrator?
So Alice, I would say just give me an email and let's just work on that offline, and I will try to incorporate that into the Facebook discussion. I inherited the AAUW California Facebook page. I have no idea who owns it, to tell you the truth. Right. But we have administrators on it, so we can keep it going. I've tried to move ownership over. It is a challenge. And sometimes you just have to start over. We had to do that with our Instagram account. We got hacked and we lost all of our Instagram followers. So sometimes you just have to start over, unfortunately. But give me an email and we can chat about it.
And we definitely want to share Sandy Kirkpatrick's comment or question. Is it okay to advertise the January 21 interview entrepreneurship? And I wanted to be sure to share that openly, because the answer is yes, yes, and yes. Share. All of you, please share that Facebook event. That's the whole point of it, is that we're trying to attract non-AAUW members. The way to do that is through your public Facebook page and have them register to attend. So that's really a great question and answer, Sandy.
Yeah, and for one of the for those of you who don't use Facebook that much and you wonder what that means, there's several different ways you can like it. You can like the event, you can share the event. The most effective way is to comment on the event and to tell people why they should join, because that personalizes it for the folks that you're working with or that are in your world. It tells them that you endorse it. And you might point out that it's not just for AAUW members. So yes, please do.
And I think that's the critical thing, is to point out that it's not just for AAW members, because that is exactly that is the point of this particular project. So it's also worth sharing that one of the advantages of doing webinars like this for us is that we learn from you. And Sandra Cupp has a really good suggestion to look at your sororities, local and national boards of your sororities. And she's mentioning that her sorority is actually advertising AAUW programs, Start Smart and Work Smart. And they also have an article about AAUW. That is a fantastic tool that we frankly never thought of. So I'm sure many people in this audience have connections with sororities. And I think we need to add that to our toolkit, because that is a really good suggestion, Sandra, thank you. And I think that's all that I see that is live. We should mention that our State Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee also has a presentation about that topic, which certainly would be used to embellish your membership strategic planning. And that presentation is being presented at some of the IBC meetings right now and will be rolled around out for branches to use in the near future. And I think that's everything there.
All right.
Would you like me to keep talking for you so you don't have to cough?
No, but I think this is a good time to end.
Yeah.
Now, I apologize that I almost made it all the way through. I have a whole little pile here, but as you can tell when I'm sucking on one. So I was trying to avoid that. So I want to say thank you to Peg for joining us and sharing the San Jose experience. Oh, Gail, you can leave your picture on and say thank you to Dawn and to Gail, who've been in the background making sure that things go smoothly and that you have the right links and that your questions get answered. So thank you very much. And I'm going to end the session now. And if the presenters can stay on, that would be great. Thank you.
Bye, everybody.